This episode is brought to you by Bound Hat Company. Discover Bound Hat Company, where high-quality hats meet a greater purpose. Each hat is designed not only for style, but also to give back, with proceeds supporting charities like the PTSD Foundation of America. Whether for the outdoors or everyday wear, Bound Hat Company has the perfect hat for any occasion. Shop now at www.boundhatco.com and join the movement to support veterans and meaningful causes. Bound Hat Co. Style that makes a difference.
The following podcast discusses sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for 24/7 confidential support.
Welcome to Survival in the Trenches, Life Beyond Loss, a podcast where we share the powerful stories of those who have faced extraordinary loss and found the strength to push forward and triumph. These are real journeys of resilience, courage, and hope. Join us as we uncover what it means to rise above, even in the darkest of times. Hello and welcome to Survival in the Trenches. My name is Kelly Chandler. I will be your host. Today we are honored to have with us Lisa Picker. Thank you so much for being with us. We are honored to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, for our listeners, just step back a little bit in time and talk about you as a person before we speak about your son, Liam. I wanted to ask you where you grew up and what you thought you would be doing as an adult when you were younger.
Well, it's not very exciting, but I was born and raised in St. Charles. I've got three wonderful siblings, all girls. We were all girls, very close. Had a hard time growing up. Just had to be an adult very quickly in my childhood, which I seemed to be able to handle. So I've always been kind of an old soul. I was married very early at 17 and moved to California for 3 years. Came back and that did not work out, unfortunately, and found my Prince Charming when I was 31, and I've been married. Yesterday was 31 years to the love of my life. My husband Michael is just an amazing man in many ways. Measured, intelligent, calm, wise. He's just he's kind of the opposite of me, Kelly.
Oh, stop.
But he's a great guy. So I got to take two on that, and I always saw myself as maybe doing something in the arts. I've always been very involved in theater. Growing up in music was always a big part of my life and my family's life. We come from a musical family. My husband, Michael, his family's musical and very talented. I chose the occupation of medicine, going into patient care after a very, very bad illness with the birth of my first child, Chelsea. And I've had a wonderful, compassionate healthcare provider and nurse, and it just sparked something in me. And I have been a medical assistant with Mercy St. Louis for almost 40 years, and I have loved every minute of it. I look at it as my ministry, able to serve the people, and I look for opportunities to do that in my everyday life, my everyday employment. It's been very fulfilling for me, and I would like to think that I've contributed and been a help to my patients.
Absolutely. Well, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And congratulations on 40 years.
Almost 40 years.
Almost 40 years. That's incredible.
Yes.
And then you said earlier that retirement is in sight. So
it is November 1st,
wow.
And it's going to be a change because I've never not worked. Mm-hmm. I've always really had to work, and I enjoy working. But yeah, it's going to be a change and adjustment. But I think it's the wise thing for me to do right now. My husband's retired, and so I'm looking forward to it and being positive about it.
So tell me a little bit about, so you had your first daughter here, and that sparked your interest in getting into healthcare,
yes.
Which is pretty impressive considering you thought you were going to be in the arts or music or something to do with maybe more of the creative side of things. But you decided to go into patient care.
Patient care.
Which is wonderful. That's definitely something that you have to have a gentle, kind, accepting heart to go towards. So I'm sure that that's something that is rewarding.
It is. And it taught me a lot. My life and my childhood has taught me a lot about gratitude and about appreciation and about what's a really big deal. I worked for 22 years in pediatrics, pediatric oncology, hematology, cardiology, and psychiatry. I did that for 22 years. That's a young person's job. That's a really hard physically and mentally. But I learned a lot about loss and the strength of a mother and the strength of a child and perspective. I then went on to serve about 12, 13 years in adult medicine. So I loved that. I loved taking care of the elderly patients, the patients who I learned their ringtones because I called them so frequently, or they just wanted someone to talk to. And it was such a rewarding connection to my patients and the physicians that I work with. And so I'm ending my career in OBGYN. Kind of coming full circle.
Right.
And again, I have had opportunities throughout my career and throughout, the loss of Liam, to be able to really minister and really help people. So it's been an honor. It's been an honor.
That's wonderful. I'm happy for you in that regard. And
Thank you.
I understand what you're saying when you connect with people and you feel like you are making a difference. It really does do something internally for you, that gratitude, that just being able to give back and make someone feel special, important, or recognized, I think is a gift in and of itself. So,
well, it feeds your soul and it feeds your purpose. And I've always been a very passionate person, a very purposeful person, no matter what I've done in my life. My mother was a very strong woman. We were part Irish and part Native American. She was a very strong single mother that took care of my youngest sister, who was double cleft palate when she was born. Back 62 years ago, that was a big deal. My sister Tanya has had 18 plus operations by the time she was 18. So we did have to grow up fast. We had to grow up and learn how to take care of each other. But I learned watching my mom deal with difficult situations with my sister and her care. Hard to kind of have to raise yourself in some aspects, but I learned to glean and pull from the good things that I got from my childhood.
that's wonderful, because it does sound like it was a tough go for a while.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
And
I know what hungry is. I know what homeless is.
Wow.
But I wouldn't trade the experiences for anything.
And that's a wonderful perspective, because a lot of people would probably not have that same perspective, and you turn it into something positive.
I'm grateful every day for my washer and dryer.
Sure.
I really am. I'm grateful for my job, my car. I have a strong faith in God. I have a strong relationship with God. I'm not extremely active in church. I was for almost my entire life. I've found that the churches don't really know what to do with people who lose a child by suicide. And that's been disappointing to me. But I have never been disappointed in my relationship and what I have with God. It's really what has guided me through this terrible time.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important distinction, that your relationship spiritually doesn't necessarily have to do with the people physically here or the church itself. So I think that says a lot to how you've been able to process what you've been through and lean on what works for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't have to go you should go if that's what you need, and I do go, but you don't have to go to find your healing. He meets you where you are, especially when a tragedy happens.
I love that message. It's a great one for people that maybe don't know what to do with faith, if they have faith or not, how they can to make that work for them. So I think that really is a positive message.
It was for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So back to when you were having children, can we talk a little bit more about how your family grew and how things evolved?
Who doesn't love to talk about their kids? Well, I have a gorgeous 41-year-old daughter, Chelsea. She's also in the medical field, married to a fire captain out at Lake St. Louis. They're both involved in the foundation. They're just a joy. They have he has 3 children. She's a bonus mom to his children. And then I have my middle daughter, Zoe, who is engaged and going to be married in June. And she was the closest in age to Liam, but we were a very close blended family. Chelsea came from my first marriage, but Michael, my husband, took Chelsea under his wing and never treated her any differently than Liam or Zoe. There was a 10-year age gap between Zoe and Chelsea, and about 10 years of Chelsea being a complete stinker when I remarried, and because she was only 8 or 9, and then here came this baby girl, Zoe, came along. And then about 2 years after Zoe, Liam came along. So we had just enjoyed all the joys of parenthood and that life. I've got a really good, I think, sense of what's a big deal and what's important in life, and I had that even as a parent, even prior to losing Liam. So, and my mother was like that. She didn't get wound up super about things. I always kind of felt like my kids, I would just kind of pray them through their adolescence and the hard things that they were going through, and then hope they come out okay and safe on the other side. Because we all know kids are going to be kids, and kids have to learn, and that's just part of growing up. So I learned very early to pick my battles, but when I had to fight, when I had to go to battle, I certainly know how to do that.
I completely understand. Having 3 children of our own, it is hard. And you learn over time how to fight, pick and choose the battles, because some stuff is so tiny and like you said, it just doesn't matter. And there are other things that you have to address. You just can't ignore and hope it'll just go away or correct itself. So that's wonderful that you had a happy blended family. I think that speaks, volumes to your husband now and how he was able to take on another child or take in another child into his life and his heart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My children thought, my husband walks on water, and I said, well, that somebody else has already got that job.
Yeah.
But as girls and their dad, it was so interesting because they talk about their dad or talk to their dad, and their voices would go up an octave. The adoration that they have for Michael is it's just heartwarming. And I didn't really understand that. We have completely different relationships, Zoe and Chelsea and I, a good relationship. But I did not understand that heart. I didn't understand that till I had Liam. And I know that you must know that, what it's like to be a boy mom, because there is something special about boys and their mothers. And it's the same thing between daughters and their daddies. And so when Liam came along, I was smitten with this little guy. Has an Irish name. My husband's family is very Irish. We just returned from Ireland. Very Irish. Like I said, I have some Irish heritage and Native American on my mother's side. But Liam came out and he had an Irish name, but dark black eyes like my side of the family, and thick dark hair, and a deep voice. He had a little man voice. He had to grow into his voice. He was just charming and delightful. My children were just delightful children.
It's wonderful.
Super blessed.
Yeah, and I've seen pictures, and I know I've seen the hair and the eyes, and I'm favorable to the middle name Michael. My husband's name's Michael, and so a beautiful name, Liam Michael. And he was how much younger? He was closer in age to Zoe.
Yes,
and he was he 2 years?
A little under 2 years younger than Zoe when we had him. Yeah, so we were a hopping household.
Yeah, when they're that close,
yes.
You're busy.
Yeah.
And then you have the older sibling that can help babysit or whatever.
Exactly.
Probably more of the mom figure or trying to be the mom figure.
Very, very close family. We still have a very close family and a very close extended family.
Let's talk a little bit more specifically about Liam. He was your youngest and your boy. So let's talk about him as a young child. Like, what was he like? What was he into? What did you do? That type of stuff.
Well, he was like any other little boy. He loved reptiles. There was no shortage of critters in our house, and I knew that I really loved my child when I allowed him to get a snake. He had 2 spiders, 2 tarantulas, and a snake. Loved reptiles. Loved Pokemon. Very athletic, skateboard, basketball, was great at basketball. He was just your normal, happy, active little boy. He did seem to be taking in a lot of information at times. And I noticed this at one really specific event that happened when he was about 5. And he was at home, it was just he and I, and he was bent down in front of the television with a set of Legos or something that he got from McDonald's, and had one knee bent under and one knee up, and his hair was in his face, and he was putting this very intricate piece of Lego together. And I was watching television, and there was an advertisement for The Passion of the Christ that came on. And I had seen this advertisement before, and I knew what was coming. I knew they were going to be showing a trailer, scene from the execution, and I tried to grab the remote to fast forward it or to turn it, and I didn't get to it fast enough. And the scene was with Jim Caviezel where they were driving the stake, and you hear the hammer hit the nail and it clanks, and then you hear the groan. And without blinking an eye, Liam just said out loud, "Boy, that must have hurt." And just went on putting together his Lego. And it just kind of took me back. And I thought, this child's taking in a lot of information, processing a lot of information. Liam went on to be the sweet boy and the I won't tattle boy. And I just want to be your friend. He started to struggle in about the 3rd or 4th grade with some social anxiety, which is normal. I was in peds for 22 years. I know what schoolitis is. When kids go, "I've got a tummy ache, Mom, I got a headache." Generally if there's nothing going on, then there's nothing going on physically, there's something going on, where they're afraid. So I was very aware of that, and we kind of pushed through a year of that, and then headaches, he started complaining of headaches. And so I decided that it was time to take him in to see his pediatrician to make sure there wasn't something going on, headaches and dizziness, and really we started having a really hard time getting him to go to school. Mm-hmm. So I took him in, he had an MRI, everything turned out okay. So we decided to put him into therapy to have him talk about his anxiety and what was bothering him. We did not know, we just knew he was very fearful about going to school. So he began counseling. We began that early to try to help him, but it got to the point where he became depressed, and it was just beyond our scope of managing it with counseling, and we decided to take him out of public school and homeschool him. And my husband has a teaching degree, and so he's very good and very patient. Liam had trouble. We didn't realize what kind of trouble he was having in school by other students and bullies, and it was, some of it we chalked up to being normal stuff. His backpack would be stolen a couple times, but there were some things that happened that we found out after Liam, close to the time that Liam took his life, that were really unimaginable, and made a lot of sense why he wouldn't want to go to school. And Liam was probably one of the toughest, strongest young men that I ever encountered, finding things out afterwards. That we thought we had a grasp on things. Liam was being homeschooled, and my husband worked nights, so he was home during the day, my shift. I would be home by 5 or 5:30, so there was maybe an hour and a half, during the day that Liam would be alone, or we would have to take him somewhere to have, have somebody keep an eye on him. We didn't want him to be alone, and we were working with him. We took him into counseling, and his counselor said, "Your son is very bright. He's a very high IQ. I venture to say if we tested him, he would test off the charts." And I said, "Well, that's very flattering as a parent to hear." And, Liam's response was to the counselor, and I think Liam probably was all of 11 years old, maybe 10 or 11. He says, well, I think you're confusing articulation for intelligence. This out of a little bitty guy, and I just kind of rolled my eyes, and I just thought, well, that just proves my point. But so he was very, very bright, and I don't think it served him well, however. I think his thought process, and he was very introspective, intuitive. Those things were bigger than emotionally what he can handle, and that happens a lot with adolescents. It happens with girls and boys. It's great. I mean, Liam learned how to. One of his passions was somewhere, I don't know where, his first best friend was an Asian boy, Michael Varner, sweet little Michael Varner. He was an Asian boy, but Liam developed a love for the Asian culture, the Japanese culture. And somewhere along the line, Liam taught himself to read and write and on a limited basis speak the Japanese language. So that was our first kind of surprise and kind of, okay, this kid is very intelligent. And he could argue with the best of them. He could argue with any debate, any adult over topics. He was well read. He studied things. He dove deep into things. He could leave any adult standing there with their mouths open and wonder where that came from. He knew art. He knew Van Gogh. He knew music. So that the Japanese thing, we were kind of taken back, and we were like, well, that's amazing, Liam, but don't be cussing at me in Japanese walking up the steps, because I know that tone. I don't know what you're saying, but I know that tone. But the second big surprise he gave us was we had no idea he had a musical ability. And we had a beautiful baby grand piano that we bought for Chelsea when she was young. And Chelsea played it all of 2 weeks, and then it sat there in our music room for about 11 years, silent, a beautiful baby grand piano, and I just could not get rid of it for some reason. It was just a piece of furniture, and we were going to hand it down to our children. But one day, out of the blue, and I know he'd been practicing when we were not home, he just started to play, and he would just Mozart, and I can remember my husband walking through the house and turning around and looking at me and mouthing to me, when did he learn how to do that? And I was like, I don't know. So we were like a little blown away as he was, just played with his heart. So we found him the most wonderful music instructor, Lisa Steele. I knew she was right for Liam because I took him to his first lesson, and she came right out and went to find some Japanese music for him. So she knew he was special and different, and she would later go on at his funeral to say, when I bring in a new student, I have them sit next to me and show me their skill level. And she said, after Liam sat down and played, she said, I knew I was sitting next to greatness. So she played at his funeral, wow. his favorite song, and she's touching. She was a gift to Liam, and
he sounded incredible. Sounded like an incredible young man with an amazing gift for learning, for, like you said, art, music. He just sounds like he was an anomaly.
He was, except he was born with a really bad brain, a really bad. The world was just hard for Liam. The world was too big for Liam. The world didn't make sense for Liam. Liam didn't fit into the world. He had a hard time walking into a shopping mall without feeling anxious. I began to see clean socks kind of strewn all over the house. And he was very measured and very protective of his room and his space. And I just happened to start seeing, we lived in a 2-story. I would come out of my room in the morning, there would be a clean pair of white socks outside his door, and I'd walk down to the landing. He would be up, there'd be another pair of socks. Well, I figured out that he was suffering from OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the reasons why he didn't want a lot of people in his room is he didn't want a lot of germs in his room, and he was very particular about the way his room was set up. So that was a coping mechanism for Liam, was to change his socks. He felt like he had to change his socks. Now, I say this a lot if I ever do a talk and I'm talking about OCD was just one symptom, one diagnosis that Liam had. There's a very, very interesting movie or piece, a clip out of the movie The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he plays Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes had a couple of mental illnesses. One of them was OCD. But there's a scene in that movie where he is having dinner with this very beautiful woman, and he has to use the restroom, and he excuses himself, goes into the bathroom in this beautiful, expensive restaurant, washes his hands, and then realizes someone has taken the last towel, or he uses the towel, I believe the scene goes, and he accidentally throws it in the trash can. And you can see the look on his face, because he has just realized that that is dirty. He has nothing to open the door with to get out, and he is locked in this mind. And if you can, I cannot imagine having that illness where your thoughts race back and forth in your brain, and the only way to appease that is the way that you think that you have to appease that. And the panicked look on Leonardo DiCaprio's face was exactly what I would see in Liam if we walked into a shopping mall and to the food court, and he would look around, and I immediately was able to read that it was too much for him. You know, it's debilitating for people. The germ phobia is debilitating. But fortunately, on top of that, he had depression and severe anxiety.
So throughout all of these different either diagnoses or circumstances for him, was he ever on medication, or did you try any different types of therapy to help him through that? What were some of the ways you kind of, as parents, tried to help him through those times?
Well, we thought, we had hopes to get him back into school. We wanted him to be able to go back to school. We explored the thought of a private school, a more artistic school. We tried it. It just didn't work for Liam. We kept him in therapy. We had some very good therapists, and I knew that was something that we could do. When it got to the point where he wouldn't go, was declining going out with his friends, going to family functions, we found a psychiatrist for him to see, and we started on some medication, which I was not opposed to. I wanted him to. I struggled with that, and a lot of creative people struggle with melancholy or with just feeling things very intensely. And I am that way, my husband is that way, Liam was that way, my daughter Chelsea's that way. Zoe's a little bit more in the middle, but I understand that personality trait because I have that, my husband has it. So I was not opposed to some medication if I felt like it would maybe calm him and take the edge off. The problem that we seemed to have with Liam was that he was medication resistant. Tried many medications that just did not work. So we were kind of running out of options. He was a great tennis player. He played, that was his physical hobby. There's a saying in counseling and in therapy that you want to keep a carrot dangling in front of somebody who is struggling. And I tell moms or people that approach me or have, what do you have anything that you can just give me? And I will just glean from what I've learned. And I'll say, well, you dangle a carrot, you give them a little something to look forward to in small increments. Liam, loved the piano but was afraid to play in public. Played beautiful tennis. He was a Roger Federer type player, not aggressive like Nadal or Djokovic, just he was a pretty player, but he would get inside his head and sabotage himself every time. So what would start out something very good would always end up kind of tragic for Liam because he didn't know how to deal with it. So we were just hoping it would take the edge off. We just couldn't find the right cocktail. We tried, and the saddest thing, Kelly, is, as parents, Michael and I tag teamed him to, we tried to keep our home life, and parents do this all the time. You try to keep your home life as normal as possible when you're dealing with a stressful situation. And this does not only go for somebody who's dealing with mental health issues. This goes with parents who are dealing with children who have life-threatening diseases, or somebody who has MS and they're in a wheelchair. You try to keep things normal. Mm-hmm. And Mike and I had a great system, and we were a great team as parents. And we would just, he would take him to an appointment if it worked during his schedule, or I would run home from Manchester, lived in St. Charles, pick Liam up. I would take him all the way down off of Interstate 44 to see his counselor. You just, when you're a parent and you love your children, and all parents do, you will go to the ends of the earth to help them. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that means your other children suffer a little bit. So I would tell people to be careful, be aware of that. We had an incident with Liam where Zoe, he had his computer out in the loft, and Liam had it all set up the way he wanted it. Well, we usually put a Christmas tree in the loft where the computer was, and Zoe came in and started saying, well, I'm going to go ahead and get everything ready for the Christmas tree, and started rearranging Liam's things, and Liam just went bonkers. He just got so upset, and Zoe didn't understand it. And I knew that she was thinking we were really babying Liam in areas. So I brought her to Liam's therapist, and I said, John, explain to Zoe how Liam's brain works and why he got so upset over you touching touching the computer, moving his things, why he doesn't want people in his rooms. So I had John, his therapist, write out on a piece of paper and show Zoe, this is how the brain works when you have OCD. This is what happens. It's like a ball bearing that keeps running down the same track in your brain over and over and over and over and over. And it can put somebody over the edge if you don't know how to control it. So I felt like educating my children as to what was going on was probably one of the more beneficial things that I did, so that they could understand their brother. It was after a very, very shocking phone call that the reality and the severity of Liam's illness set in. And that, unfortunately, came when I was at work one day, and I was triaging. I was at my desk on my phone, then my cell phone rang, and it was Liam, which wasn't unusual. He had probably finished with his chores, but I picked up my phone, and his voice was very flat. And he said, Mom, I can't take it anymore. And I'm in the bathtub with a blow dryer, and I'm going to kill myself. And I fumbled with my headset, fumbled it off. My heart began pounding. I mean, my heart's pounding as I'm telling this story. I found my way out of the office so I could talk to him, and I said, Liam, I don't know what you're talking about. Liam, I don't know what you're thinking. What's wrong, son? He said, I can't take it anymore, Mom. And I said, Liam, don't do this. Do not do this. This is not the answer. I'm on my way home. I'm coming home. Stay with me on the phone. And he hung up. Just click. It went dead. And I had my daughter Zoe. Liam was probably 14 when this happened. My daughter Zoe was on her way back from a dentist appointment, coming home to the house where Liam would have been there. I didn't know what, horror. It was a horror movie going through my brain. My thought was, what has happened to this child that he wants to electrocute himself? But I had to call my daughter Zoe. I'm calling the police, I'm calling the EMT, I'm calling my husband, I'm trying to get a hold of Zoe. I finally get a hold of Zoe, and I had to tell my 16-year-old child, don't go in the house, Zoe. Your brother's not well. I was 25 minutes away. A friend took me, we got there. Paramedics were everywhere. My neighbor had the wherewithal, and Zoe, to break in the back door. Nobody was getting in the house. He had locked all the doors from the inside with the bolts. My neighbor, Mark, God love him, had an axe, broke through the back door. There was glass all over the back door when I got there. I went upstairs, and there were little wet footprints from Liam from coming out of the bathtub and the blow dryer laying on the floor in our bathroom. He was sitting in the corner in his boxers, wet, shivering. I didn't know what to do with myself. I picked him up. I took him into the bathroom. I said, Liam, I don't know what's going on, but you listen to me. I did not want him to go into intake. I did not have good feelings, experiences with any type of intake program, and I was not going to let them have my child. I said, I don't care what you tell him. You tell him that they're going to take you, Liam, if we don't figure this out and we don't. So that was our first experience with an attempt, and it was horrible.
Let's take a minute. Let me give you a hug. So sorry. So after this terrible event happened, how did you as a family pull things back together and move forward with him and try to get him back into a frame of mind where you felt safe with him just being in his own presence? How did you move forward from that?
We didn't, Kelly, to be really honest. You don't, that experience, and then especially my daughter Zoe being involved at such a young age, and my daughter Chelsea, it leaves you feeling extremely fragile and vulnerable. When one of your children attempts to take their life, every thump, every bump in the night, every phone call that's not picked up when you call him, it makes your heart stop. And, you know, these problems began very young in Liam's adolescence, and they lasted until he was almost 19 years old. So you don't ever relax. You know, we all have post-traumatic stress from our experience. My husband, myself, both of my daughters went into therapy afterwards. It's just not something you ever relax and go, okay, I'm in a good place, because Liam never got to a good place. There were ebb and flows where, I mean, it's so pitiful that we would get excited when Liam would want to go to a friend's house. You know, like, well, okay, he wants to go somewhere. Okay, of course, Liam, we'll take you, you know. Anything that we felt was helping him grow and learn, you know, we wanted for him. We did for him. And he had a select, tight-knit group of kids, and honest to goodness, they were the most motley-looking crew when I laid my eyes on them. But these kids, artistically, they were the type of children that you would look at in school and you would go, oh, there's a problem. Liam had a very eclectic look about him, type of kid you'd see walking down on Del Mar in the Loop, just a good-looking kid. I used to tell him, if I had your looks, Liam, if I had your intelligence, and if I had your talent, I'd have an ego problem. But we just couldn't make him understand. We couldn't make him understand. It wasn't until later, years later, after several more attempts, that we realized there were some really difficult things he endured at school. He went to his sixth grade year in Hardin in St. Charles when they were transitioning all the students, the middle school students, to one school. So we lived in a different part of St. Charles, and so he was in school with a lot of different kids. And like I said, Liam was the sweet kid and the quiet kid and the stand up for, don't be mean to the kid. But Liam ended up being the one picked on. And he, you know, things like came out just months before he took his life, that he had been shoved in his locker and locked in his locker several times. He had been in the bathroom, and trying to use the urinal and being pushed into the urinal. while he's trying to urinate. Some young boy in shop class tried to play kind of Russian roulette with a hammer and was holding his hand down and trying not to hit his hand. These are things that kids should never have to go through. And to be really honest with you, I think there was some form of abuse on a sexual level that we don't know about. I don't want to know about it, but my gut tells me, and the research that I've done, the way Liam behaved, because it was like a switch. It was like a switch. And where he didn't want to go to places, didn't want to go to family, didn't want to go to friends, everything, he was fearful of everything. I can't prove that, but my intuition tells me that somewhere, somebody abused Liam, more than just physical or putting him in a locker, or, he had a crap life. That's the way he had a crappy life, and it was hard for him. And, and he didn't deserve it. And people don't deserve to struggle. But if we can't teach our children to behave, to be kind, to be gentle, if we are not warriors and look out for our children, this world is a tough world. It's a wonderful world. There are wonderful things. We are an optimistic, hopeful family that has found not joy, but we've found happiness since Liam. But it's hard out there, and it's getting harder for kids, much harder. And things are too big for them. They shouldn't be dealing with things that they're dealing with. Things I would do differently, I would not let him have social media or a phone at the age that I did. I would not. Parents have to put their big boy and big girl pants on and be parents. You have control, and you have say. You're supposed to be a guidance for your children. You're supposed to be looking out for your children. They're not gonna melt out in the rain if they don't have a phone with them, or some limitations or some boundaries to feel secure. I always tell families to watch for changes in their behavior, a drastic change in behavior, whether they get quiet, they get reclusive. They stop talking, they stop socializing, stop wanting to go out with friends, spending more time alone in their room, more time by themselves. They're moody. Liam was a boy in puberty, and he had that, to deal with, and didn't know how to deal with it. There's just a lot. We expect a lot out of our children, but the parents have got they've got to dig their heels in, or they're going to end up a statistic like we are. And I'm not over-exaggerating that. It's hard enough for adults in this world right now to cope with what's going on visually on a social economic level. There's confusing messages out there. You have to pick a road, and you got to stay on that road. And you've got to do it for the sake of yourselves and the sake of your children and your family, no matter how hard it is.
It is a hard world right now, especially for young people. And I don't think that we as parents understand exactly how to manage that at times, like you're saying, because you want them to have a sense of freedom and independence, and they're growing and they're accepting different parts of the world, but yet you do want to control them and not get them exposed to all this crazy stuff that's out there now, and there are no barriers to information like there were in the past.
No.
And it is a hard line to walk, I feel.
It is. And I don't, I try to use the word, I try not to use the word control as a parent. Manage your children, manage their environment, manage their social media. They don't need to go to bed with their phone. When their reflection in life, looking back at them, is only through the reflection of a social media and social media comments, and for Liam, it was his sense of worth and well-being was a reflection, was looking back at him at his phone. And some kids mentally and emotionally can handle that and are tough-skinned. Some kids are not. I don't know anybody, even adults now, that, is happy if somebody says something ugly about them on social media. I mean, I've certainly been criticized for being as outspoken as I am about Liam's life and death and what I feel needs to change and the changes that have been made. But I will die on, this is an issue I will die on the Hill for. Because that's that important. And if we're not here in this world as individuals to help pull the people along with us to help, then really what is our purpose? And so his life and his health became our passion and purpose. When he finally, Liam would say to me, Mom, when's my medicine going to work? Do you think it'll work in a couple months? Do you think I'll feel better in a couple months? Mom, when do you think I'm going to feel better? Do you think this will be it? And it went from, Mom, do you think I'll feel better in a few months, to, Mom, do you think I'll feel better in a week, to 3 days before he took his life, Mom, I just want one good day. And he was almost 19 years old and had his head in my lap crying, Mom, what's wrong with me? And we had done everything that we knew how to do, with all the means at my fingertips, being in the medical field and the doctors that I know. And oh my goodness, I know some good doctors and some people that helped me along the way. All the connections. We still couldn't help Liam. We talked to him about EMDR, which is very helpful for people, especially with post-traumatic stress. Both my daughters went through it. We tried to get him TMS therapy, which is cranial stimulation. Well, I got the call that Liam, his doctor fought for Liam to get back, years ago, Liam wasn't old enough to have that. They didn't do it on anybody under 18 years of age. Well, I got the call 2 days after Liam had taken his life that he was approved for the therapy. Now, would it have changed the trajectory or would it have helped him? I don't know. But insurance and medicine, red tape is part of the problem. The whole industry is part of the problem. Our society doesn't want to talk about it. Big things have to change to break the stigma. And it starts with everybody. It starts with these facilities not looking like they're jails. It starts with a softer, a warmer environment. No child looking at a mental health facility wants to go into a cold brick place and be treated. Liam was treated like a criminal. 3 different facilities, the same experience. If my husband and I were unkind people, we would be very wealthy people now because of the treatment that our son got in these facilities. That's not the type of people that we are, but we sure could have, and we wouldn't have to be asking people for $100 donations to support Liam's foundation for mental health resources. And we'd be sitting easy. But that wasn't the answer. So after the day came, and the prayer that I prayed, and some mothers may think, I don't know how you ever could pray this prayer, but my faith and my walk with God is very close. And I just prayed 2 days before he died, because Liam had been on every prayer chain in every church in Missouri. My husband and I at the altar praying our guts out for Liam. And then I finally said, God, whatever it takes to make Liam well. And I knew what I was saying. I knew what I was praying. I knew that I was letting go. And 2 days later, I woke up, and we were going to take him to his doctor's appointment and see a psychiatrist. And the nights were really tough for Liam. he would be up all night, all hours of the night, and he had a blue screen on his computer, and I would see the blue light underneath his door. And I got up that morning, and I saw his light on, and I went over and I said, Liam, we got to leave early this morning. You have 2 appointments. And Liam always went to his appointments. And I went downstairs and I had a cup of coffee, and I went back upstairs. And I was getting my scrubs on because I had to go to work after. Mike and I were taking him, and Mike was bringing him back. And I purchased a dress, a formal dress to wear that 2 of them, and one of them to wear to a charity event the couple weeks before. And I had worn one, and I had the tags on the other one. It was a dressy dress, and I said to myself, I need to return that dress. And then this voice, it's a spiritual voice. I'm not hearing voices. It's a discernment. Just said, no, Lisa, you're going to need that for Liam's funeral. And I put my brush down, and I walked to his door in his room, and I knocked on his door, and there was no answer. And I banged on his door, and there was no answer. And I went and I got my husband, and I said, Mike, Liam's not answering. And he got up and went to the door, and fortunately Zoe wasn't home and Chelsea wasn't home. But he hung himself during the night from his ceiling fan. So he was gone. He was gone. He was not suffering anymore.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah. Ceiling fan was pulled away from the ceiling, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
But some amazing things, Kelly, has happened since Liam died. Most horrible thing, to lose him in the way. But I just knew that the world just wasn't going to get better for him. And some wonderful, comforting things, and the grief, and learning how to embrace the grief and the loss, and learning how to walk through life. Every night when I left work, I always called him, and he'd be like, Mom, when you get me McDonald's? And I'm like, son, you had last night. You have to relearn how to walk through your life, your days. And it takes a long time. I didn't know what to do with myself. My husband and I both went back to work a week after he died, and my daughter Zoe. I don't know that I would recommend that, but the place that I worked with, the physicians and the women I worked, were very helpful in my healing and allowed me to grieve, and I loved them dearly for that. I don't know that that's for everybody, because one thing I've learned from grief is you can't run from it, you can't hide from it. It's more physically fit than you are, it's wiser than you are, it's tenacious, and it will chase you and hunt you down until you accept it. And that's what I had to go through. And I embraced my grief every step of the way. I cussed, I talked about it, I was mad at God. I said all you had to do was touch him. And then I have such peace about Liam not being here. It was like, I'm going to heal him, but I can't heal him. He's not going to be healed here. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people would go, I don't understand how you could pray that or how you could accept that. Well, I'm not the only person. People lose children every day to cancer. Mental illness is an illness. Cancer is an illness. Your mothers and fathers don't ask for these things. It doesn't pick and choose. It just happens. And I've looked at Liam's life and his illness and his death the way I would look at somebody who was dealing with a terminal disease, because I saw that boy fight like a crazy person to get well. And it just wasn't the way it was going to be. So now we have no Liam and a foundation in his honor to help other people.
Which is amazing that you've taken that pain and, as we say, turned it into purpose. And you were there every day for him through his entire life. You did everything possible. You had all the medical connections, like you said, and it wasn't meant to be the way he was going to heal, as you said. It just wasn't going to work in our world, it sounds like. At least that's how you've accepted it.
Yes, yes. And one of the first things I told my girls when we were getting ready to go to the funeral home, because this came as a surprise to a lot of people because we kept it under wraps as much as we could. Liam's close circle of friends knew because they were there to help Liam. But I told them, I said, there are going to be a lot of hurting people there today. A lot of sad people and a lot of hurting people. And I want you to understand something. This is horrible. This hurts so bad. This is the worst thing that I've ever experienced. But there are families out there who have lost more than one child. I know that. I worked in peds and oncology and general peds. I've seen that. I've learned to look at life. I looked at life and looked at people's lives. I said, there are people who've lost more than one sibling. We're no better. We're no different. Try to go in there today and be a strength and a hope and a comfort to those people. And that's kind of what we chose. Initially, I chose to try to find my way through with gratitude. Michael's a much different griever. Everybody's different. He's quiet. Zoe ran from it for a long time, and we ended up taking her to an excellent clinic in Florida called Honey Lake. It's in Gainesville, Florida. It's for depression, addiction, alcohol, post-traumatic stress. It is an amazing clinic that we drove our daughter, who was 21 years old, to Florida and left her there for 7 weeks to get help. And you talk about a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. But she was spiraling out of control. It took her a year to finally stop and go, my brother's gone. And it takes people time. Chelsea, she had problems with drinking and substance abuse, and that's how she coped with it. And then after a few years, she had to go, I need this to stop. She too went to Honey Lake for treatment. Both of the girls, they're doing well. They're able to talk about their brother. They're able to help other people. They don't miss an opportunity to share about Liam and they've got the most beautiful hearts and empathy and understanding. And they lend so much to the foundation because they're siblings. And sibling loss is different than parent loss. So they're able to connect to people on a different level when we do events or we're doing fundraisers. So they've found their way. You know, my advice would be to not rush your grief. Reach out to people that has been through it, that can encourage you. One of the things that I found that I could not do that was not helpful was I went right away, tried to find support groups. Well, I would walk into these support groups and these people would be crying for an hour and a half and I'm like, hell no. Mm-hmm. I can do this on my own time. I get these people are here for support and help, but week after week I'm like seeing no progress and I'm like, dear God, is this what my life is going to be like for the rest of my life? I was a young woman in her 50s. Is this what life is going to be like? This can't be. It can't. I won't let it be this way. So I found myself counseling the people, and honestly I have to attribute that to my faith and the way I chose to look at Liam and his loss, and to be grateful for everything Liam had. I mean, Liam's music, one piece we had of his that he composed on the piano, one piece. It was called Winter. Liam played the piano by ear, and his teacher was trying to get him to write these compositions down. Liam, you could do commercials and film and you've got this gift. And so for Christmas that year, the year before he died, I bought him a pack of writing paper, of music paper. And he did his Christmas musical at his with his piano instructor, and he composed an original composition called Winter, and he went and he played that. Well, after he died, we were looking for a foundation or someplace that had that, supported, encouraged, sponsored young children, adolescents that are gifted in music, and we found a place, and this was no coincidence, in New York and in Philadelphia, called Harmony for Peace, and it was run by a Japanese woman called Tomoko Tori. Wow. And all I had to do was scroll down and see her face, and I knew I was at the right place.
Yeah.
And so they had a program for young, gifted kids, and so we had people make donations to Harmony for Peace. Well, through that connection and my conversations with Tomoko and just kind of telling her about Liam, she said, we have a production every year at Christmas at Carnegie Hall. We'd like to debut Liam's piece at Carnegie Hall. And so I had it on video. I had to send the video to Hal Leonard Music in Minneapolis to be composed and then put in print. They had to send that back to me. And then Tomoko chose the concert pianist, Gohei Nishikawa from Japan, who closed out the Olympic ceremonies for the Paralympics when it was in Japan a few years ago. That's how well known he is. Wow. He performed it at Carnegie Hall in December of 2018. Art Holiday from Channel 5 went with us and documented the whole experience. So he sat there in black tie on a cold December night, and Winter came to life, played by this. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Kelly.
It's phenomenal.
Liam loved a Japanese pianist. Then the song went on to be picked up for the motion picture for a Japanese soundtrack, the movie Shiori, which means notebook in Japanese. And the producers of the movie flew Michael and I out to Tokyo for the premiere of the movie.
That's unbelievable.
In Liam's honor. So Liam is probably as well known over there as a lot of people, his name and his story, because Gohei continues to tell his story and play Winter. And with our blessings and our love, we go. I mean, it's been played all over the world. One of my cousins was walking through an airport in Wisconsin, and there was a gentleman at the piano playing Winter.
Now I want to hear it.
It's very simple. It's very beautiful. It's just the power of the message. So, and there's such beautiful things that have come out. And my desire as a mom who's lost a child is to help the mothers, to help the people in any little way I can. We're not a big foundation. We're not looking to be big. We just want to be helpful. But it's really important to me that I help mothers find a way to honor their children because they deserve it. And Liam has been honored in so many ways. And, I've got an original composition of my son's. And you just can't make it up.
No, you can't.
No.
Not with the Japanese connection, love of music, just,
No.
Carnegie Hall, everything.
I know. And it was packed. Christmas time, it was just, when you say, oh yeah, my son's piece debuted at Carnegie Hall, you just go, whew.
Right.
It was just a whole different level and emotion, but we were so thankful for it. It helped us heal.
I'm sure. It's a tremendous story. Well, what else can you tell us about the foundation that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, it's, of course it was born out of love and purpose, and it's a place for us to put our grief, and it gives purpose to the pain. And I just wanted it to be very simple. The first thing that I wanted to be able to do, because this was the very first thing we had to come up with, you don't ever expect to have to pay for a child's funeral. So I wanted to be able to, as part of the Liam Michael Foundation, raise funds to help parents, support them in funeral costs, whether it's a grave marker, the reception for the day at the funeral home, or part of the actual burial. We wanted to be able to raise money to help parents who lose a child 18 and under by suicide. The second part was what kept Liam alive, I feel, for as long as it did. And Liam was here a lot longer than he really wanted to be. And that was to provide money and funds for mental health services to people who cannot afford it, whether it's assisting with co-pays or paying for the services in full. I know some wonderful therapists that do a great job, but we don't never tell anybody, you have to go here, you have to go there. That's a very personal decision, choosing a therapist. So we do vet them, though, and we do set up, we do ask that they do, if they're going to take money, because we do not have any paid employees at the Liam Michael Foundation. They're all volunteer. We work on a very, very slim margin. About 95 or more percent, the last I checked, all goes out to our community to help people. So, but we do ask that if somebody's going to come and they need financial help, that they at least reduce the rate a little bit so they can maximize the benefit of what we can do. Again, we're not a huge foundation. We do fundraisers. All of our money really comes from our community. Some churches do support us. We have had a few small grants, but mostly it's people just giving $100, $500. But the majority of our money goes to mental health services or treatment centers, financial support. We don't ask a lot of questions. It's personal. I understand, being in the medical field, HIPAA laws. You have to be careful. There's a certain amount of trust that goes into it, but we're very measured and careful about it, about where our funds go. And the third, these are called our butterfly projects in the foundation. The third butterfly project is yet to be developed. It's a music project that we'd like to be able to offer some type of music scholarship to a young, up-and-coming little genius like Liam was, and give them a check and say, go get them, go do, be, dream, live, play music. It's therapeutic. So it's not a lot of fluff. But I tell you, all of the people that are involved in it, from our vice president to our secretary, we have junior board members because we want to keep our pulse on the teenagers and the young people. What's going on in schools, what's going on in their lives, what people are dealing with. Liam had a lot of gay friends, a lot transgender friends. We don't ask questions. We're not there to ask questions. We're there to help.
That's wonderful.
We just keep it very simple. So again, it's healing for us to help other people, and if we leave the world better. And the coolest thing about it, Kelly, honestly, with the foundation and the way we have it set up, is I really trust and vet the counselors and trust them with the money. Everybody on my foundation I would trust with our credit card, my personal, everything. So I've been criticized for setting our foundation up that way, but I would do it the same way in a heartbeat. These people knew Liam. These people grew up with Liam. But the one thing I'm most proud about is that I get information back from counselors. Thank you, this has helped this many people. And I get first names and accounts, no last names and stuff like that. But we don't know who we're helping. And I kind of like that. Just kind of makes me smile that I know that, we're not doing this. We just want to be a source for people. And we do the best that we can with what we have. We'd like to expand to more grief, seminars. That's something I'm looking to expand, because I think we can really be helpful and hopeful. That's what I want to be, is hopeful. There is hope. There's hope after I don't know what I'm going to do with this stuff. What am I going to do with his clothes? What am I going to do with his Christmas ornaments? I walked into his room one day and all of a sudden his scent was gone. And I wrote a big, long piece, I went looking for you today, Liam. Your computer's still here. Your phone's still on your desk. Your glasses are on the bookshelf. But your scent, it's gone. I mean, it's the guts of losing a child. It's what do you do on their birthdays? What do you do on their anniversary of their death? Well, you find your way through it. You muddle your way through it and you figure out what works for you. And by the grace of God, you can come out on the other side and you can be happy. And I'll be honest with you, the sun doesn't shine quite as warm or bright anymore. And I have things, I am so lucky. I have wonderful children, a wonderful husband, wonderful friends and job. I don't, we're not wealthy, but I don't want for anything. I count my blessings. But the sun doesn't feel as warm or shine as bright as it did, and I don't think it ever will. But we've found a happiness. We can be happy in things. It's just that joy will have to wait for another time.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I think what you're doing is incredible. Obviously, it's never gonna be over. You're never gonna be over your grief, and it's something that could have taken over your life, but you've turned it into something for other people. You don't even care who it's helping. You just know you're helping other people, and it goes back. All this story kind of goes back to your roots with your love of music. You're a caretaker. All these things that have kind of followed you through your life to where you are now. I feel like you're putting that into your foundation, your creativity, your harder upbringing. You're helping people that maybe aren't as fortunate. I really feel like you're taking all of those life lessons and you're putting that into your foundation and honoring your son at the same time. It's a noble effort, and the fact that your whole family is involved is incredible, and people he grew up with and trust, and you feel like they could probably take over at any time because they've given you that trust and vice versa. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And I hope that in your retirement, you're able to get out and do more of the grief seminars and that type of thing. You will have more time to focus on the foundation. And
those are my hopes.
Yeah, I think that would be a wonderful thing for you to be able to participate in.
Yeah.
And
people just, women, moms, anybody, you just need a place to go where there's hope. I like I said, I wasn't going to the crying counseling, the group thing. I'm like, this is not going well. This is not where I want to be. I want to know that there's hope, and I believed that there was hope. And the farther I got down my grief journey, I could see little seeds of hope, and people that would come into my life in my practice when I have patients that I would be sitting in the room with, and I would just feel something would come up unexpected, and it would just prompt me to say, well, I lost my son by suicide, and I would be sitting in front of a patient who had just lost their brother by suicide. None of these things in my view, and I will go to my grave feeling this way, are ever happenstances. I think God prepares your life, knows what you're capable of, equips you, and then you do with it. I mean, I'm a tough Indian girl. And my son he wasn't involved in drugs. First thing people ask, which just aggravates me, was he doing drugs? And I remember a police officer asked me that one time when he had to come to the house. And I said, I wish it was that simple. I wish I could see, because I could see that. Liam didn't even smoke a cigarette. Did he do drugs? No. He couldn't walk into a supermarket. He couldn't walk into these were real, tangible illnesses that needed treatment. And a lot of people, maybe Liam would have, older that he got, that's where he would have gone for a respite, would have been through drugs or alcohol. A lot of people do that are suffering from mental illness. They need help and their resources, and there's a lot of people out there doing good. But sometimes you just have a bad brain or a bad, string of luck, and things just don't, the odds are stacked against you.
right.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share or cover before we wrap up our conversation today?
I guess I don't want to leave on a very, very sad note. I do want to say that because of Liam's death, some of the work that I've been able to do through my employer, Mercy, they have made changes in the way that they accept kids coming into intake. Things that happened to Liam where they would take his clothes away, they would have to go and search him. He was a grown adult boy at almost 19. After I got my bearings after Liam died and I went and sat down with people at Mercy or at a round table, I said, he had adult genitalia. Did you ever stop to think when you needed to go in and search him, and I understand the need for searching him, that maybe he'd been molested or something happened to him? And maybe you should have asked, Liam, are you more comfortable with a man or a woman doing this? Simply bring some humanity back into the mental health care field. And I feel like my voice has done that through the work that I've done and the conversations I've had with Mercy. The behavioral health center is happier. We don't need them to look like they're going to prison. You have the Ronald McDonald House on the same property that looks happy and hopeful and healthy. These kids are not asking to have mental problems. They're looking for somebody to help them. They're looking for somebody to say, only one time in Liam's encounters with mental health people, and he was in intake 3 times. Did somebody offer their hand and say, hi, Liam, my name is, I'm going to help you feel safe here. I couldn't find Liam a bed by himself in a room. I said, he's got OCD. He can't be in general population. They spit, they urinate, bad things happen in general. I know what it's like. Do you have a room where he can feel safe? No. Well, then you're not taking my son. So they've made progress. There's a long way to go. There's still a long way to go. But we're talking about it. There's resources out there. There's Honey Lake I spoke of. I wish I could say that that I know of good places in St. Louis. I've not had that experience. I talk to people who give me feedback. Some people have had better experiences. I just think overall, these poor kids they're dealing with bad things that are going on in their head and emotions they don't know how to deal with. The therapists are doing the best that they can. These people need to remember they're human beings. They're children, they're young people, they're adults you don't know their story, you don't know the layers that are underneath the onion. And usually there's always a reason. Just be compassionate. Don't take their clothes away from them. Don't take their dignity away from them. Don't treat them with some respect. We all want to be respected. And I fought for that for Liam. You can't have my child. You can throw me in jail. You can do whatever you need to do, but you're not taking my child. I don't trust you with my child. But those places are necessary. If somebody is actively suicidal, as a clinician, as a clinical person, if somebody, and I had this happen on the other end of a phone line triaging, and somebody is suicidal or homicidal, yes, there is a need for intake. That is a necessity. There are things that are outside. But as parents, you just need to keep your thumb and your finger on things and make sure that your loved ones and your children are being treated the way that they need to be treated. Don't accept anything less. You wouldn't.
It's great advice, and I think that's wonderful you're having those conversations with the right people that can hopefully make some real changes for others that are going to be coming their way. I mean, you want it to be welcoming, and you want it to be a place of healing and hope, and I think you can amplify that based on personal experience and healthcare experience. So what better person to give that type of feedback? I think that's great. Mm-hmm. It's a step in the positive direction for those types of facilities. And there's a lot to be done in this space that no one knows what to do. So I think that hopefully, again, when you retire, there's some things that you could really focus on and help direct, going forward. So
I'm hoping so. I'm looking forward to what path that's out there for me. And I walk through the door. I let the doors open and I walk through the doors and take the opportunities as they come. So I'm looking forward to my daughter getting married and having grandchildren. So she's got a great guy. So that's hopeful in our future, and we've all kind of come to a place where we know Liam is well, and he's at peace, and he's finally well.
How can our listeners find out more about the foundation? Where are you online or on social?
We're Grassroots Foundation. They can go to www.liammichaelfoundation.org. Well, of course, we're on the web, we're on Instagram, on all the social media platforms, but our website will give them a little bit of history about Liam, a little bit of history about my background and what I have done, our resources that we offer locally. We to date, we've been a foundation since 2018. My husband unfortunately had a medical issue, and we had to put actively starting and fundraising. It took us a little while to get on our feet, but in just a few short years, Kelly, with the help of our community, our fundraisers, we do music trivias, and the Oktoberfest has helped us, and just Liam's story getting out there. But we have been able to offer over $40,000 in mental health care services. That's a lot of money when you're talking about people making, $50, $100 donations. That's a lot of support to give for a very small foundation that has no corporate funding. So you can go to our website. It talks about our butterfly projects. It's very simple. I feel very proud of the foundation and the work that we do and how lean we work. And it's all volunteer. Everybody on the board knew Liam, grew up with Liam, knows Mike and I. We have a lot of integrity about the foundation and feel very proud of it. And we don't sit on the money. We don't sit on our funds that we get. We get it out there and we get it working, because that's not our money. So it goes out into the community, because there's a lot of need out there. Things are tight. People's budgets are tight. Mental health resources they're not generous, and they're not plentiful. So we get the funds out there. We don't sit on it. We maybe have $10,000 in our bank sitting right now, but we just don't feel. We feel an urgency to help when the need is there, and when that comes along, we act on it. And we get that taken care of and get those people the help that they need. And
that's nice that people know you're very active in our own community. Yes. You're getting money to people who might not necessarily have it available. Times are tight, and you're doing your best to make sure you're giving that money back. You're not sitting on it, like you said, which is great. You're 90 to 95% back out the door.
Out the door. Yes, our costs are very minimal. The one thing I do want to say is our counseling funds, our butterfly project for our counseling funds is not limited to just adolescents or teens. If you're an adult struggling and you've got, you're having trouble, paying your co-pays, and you need to go to a counselor or a mental health, a lot of doctors are now becoming concierge physician, and you have to pay up front. The Butterfly Project for counseling and our mental health services is not limited to age. The limitation we did put on for the funeral costs, because that can really, take a big chunk of money. And we give what we can as we allocate money in different areas. That's for families who lose a child 18 and under by suicide. We had to go, we didn't have $11,000, $12,000 liquid X, right. And that's a strain that and they want the money that day. We were sitting at the funeral home the day he died. They wanted the money that afternoon. Mm-hmm. I understand it, it's a business. And they were very compassionate and very good to us. But, that's a need that families have, that if you don't have money to give your child a proper something, we can help in a little way. We may not be able to pay for the whole thing, but there's some things we can do to say that we care and we understand.
So for all the listeners out there, you can check out the Liam Michael Foundation. It's www.liammichaelfoundation.org. And there is a donation tab on the website, I'm assuming, if you want to make a donation, knowing that it's going to be back in our community, doing some wonderful things for people that need it. Thank you so much, Lisa. We appreciate you being with us today and sharing your story and all of your wonderful resources. And we hope that your story will help listeners know that there is more to look forward to after a tragic event, and you're out there as a resource yourself for people to turn to if they're having questions about what they need to do when they've been faced with something this tragic. So thanks again for your time.
Very welcome. Thank you.
You've been listening to Life Beyond Loss, a podcast from Survival in the Trenches. If you'd like to get involved and help those struggling to cope with personal loss, visit us at our website, survivalitt.com, and follow us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast so we can continue to grow and reach more people in need. Together, we can make a difference.